Good afternoon, everyone. I think the challenge of speaking last is that you're going to be repeating everything that has been said. And I don't know how I can just recreate my speech because I had some thoughts of what I wanted to say. And listening to everybody throughout the morning, I was like, what am I going to say? I'll be repeating everything. But I wanted to kind of like personalize what I would want to share with you as far as digital and financial inclusion is concerned. And probably in the speaking, I might be able to highlight some new insights or to spark up your thinking. So for me personally, my journey started 20 years ago. I hope by saying this, I'm not revealing my age. I opened my first bank account 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, actually. At the time, I was going to school in Bear, boarding school, so I needed to have access to funding every now and then to be able to cover up or respond to emergencies or other unplanned school-related expenses, right? And as I was thinking this morning, I was like, what really worked in my favor to allow me or to enable me to have an account at that time? So 3 things came to mind. One was the fact that I had some money, so some income from family in terms of pocket money. And of course, I had parents who kind of like understood the importance of having a safe and a secure way to store your money. But also, I had that specific need. I needed to be able to put my money somewhere whereby nobody can come and borrow anything or steal it from me or anything of that sort. And lastly, I had some sort of documentation that I could prove who I claim to be, right? So I had an identification, which in many cases is a foundational or an entry point into a lot of these systems. And by saying this, I wanted to acknowledge my privilege because not many people would have those things working for them, especially women. And also, I wanted to highlight some of the barriers that we have in promoting or in advocating for inclusion, whether it's digital or financial. So luckily, this year we do have the latest number so that it can give you a bit of a picture about the status of financial and digital inclusion in Tanzania. So the latest World Bank report shows that only 52% of Tanzanian, so adult population, anybody who is 15 years and above, have an account. This is an account at any financial institution, be a bank, be a mobile money wallet, be an MFI, so a microfinance institution, which means we have about 48% of adult population in Tanzania who do not have an account at all. So you can imagine in your situation, and I imagine a lot of us here share that privilege whereby we have some sort of like account in some way where we are managing our financial lives and we are able to respond to different shocks. So be that you are insured or be that you are able to access your credit or be that you are able to leverage different investment or whatever you have because you have built that transaction history to be able to respond and to be resilient. Majority do not have that. And of course, this survey goes further to query people, why don't you have an account, right? And again, 3 top reasons come up. One is that 82% of those people who do not have any sort of account, they say it's because they don't have any income or they don't have funds. So essentially, they don't have any extra to be able to put it aside in any sort of like a formal or informal financial system. Then you have 50% of those who do not have any sorts of account who are saying they don't have that because they don't have identification or they don't have documents that are needed to be able to open an account, be at a bank or a mobile money wallet. And I think most of us have experienced that. You needed to have your NIDA number or NIDA ID to register your phone, or you needed those documents when you approach a bank account, and it's there for a reason because they are expected by the regulation to know you, and that's how they can validate who you say you are, right? And the last thing that most people cite is the fact that these services are very expensive. And most of them don't see the need, or perhaps they don't see the value that these services deliver for them. And that's why they don't justify why you would want to pay for this. And I wanted to highlight these key 3 issues to kind of like bring to our attention, because I know this is an audience of different type of stakeholders in the ecosystem. And I think for me, when I looked at these statistics and the reasons why people do not want accounts or do not have accounts, there was only a very small proportion of population that said they don't have an account because they don't need it. So it can clearly show you that there is a huge unmet demand. People are out there, needs to be able to manage their financial lives, but unfortunately, they are not accessing them because of number of barriers. So this is really to call on different stakeholders, particularly we can start one by one. From the government side, I think there is a role to play in ensuring that we are approaching a near universal coverage as far as the identification is concerned, because this is really foundational for people to access different digital services. And I think along with that is an issue around regulations and policies that ensure consumers are protected. Because for anybody who has interacted with the financial system, I mean, a lot of us get very sensitive when money is concerned. So you need to have that assurance that if today I have sent money to the wrong person, is there a recourse system for me to make sure that I get my money back? For some of us, maybe sending 2,000 to somebody else and forgetting it comes easily, while to others, it's life and death, really, in the sense that probably that's what you needed to buy food for your family that day. And we need to make sure that there are recourse mechanism in place, and this is where I see the government plays a huge role, so that promotion of inclusion comes with protection for people who are vulnerable. But also, I think I would talk to the private sector or the players in the ecosystem, in the financial sector. I think I mentioned my example of why I'd opened a bank account. 20 years later, I don't know if I would need a bank account to be able to do the same or to accomplish the same purpose that I was looking for then. So the world is changing. We are seeing new players in the ecosystem. And really, how are the traditional providers of those services positioning themselves to respond to the needs of customers? I would go back to the point I mentioned about the services being expensive. But I think it's expensive because it's not meeting the needs of different individuals. Somebody who is earning predictable monthly income, probably their needs are very different from somebody who has irregular income that is very sporadic and probably very small. So how do you design for this specific type of a customer for them to derive value in your products? And I do acknowledge that probably they might be pushed back, saying going that route is quite expensive. And I think that's where the power of technology also comes in. Where I stand, we do support a lot of innovation because we do believe that there is power in being able to deliver new products or new services quite effectively and cost effectively. And we are really hoping for more partnership between the traditional providers and new innovators who are able to move a bit faster and nimble. And the last point that I wanted to mention, really in relation to the lack of funds that people cite as a reason why they don't want or they don't have accounts. And I think this is really to tie it to the different conversations that have been happening in the morning in looking for opportunities to leverage digital technologies to open up livelihood opportunities. We are seeing, or we have had talks about gig economy. How do we really amplify that so that people are able to use the digital platform to gain income so that inclusion has a purpose? Because we don't want people to be included in this digital system or in financial services just for the sake of inclusion. But how does this inclusion change their lives? Essentially, it comes down to how does digital change our livelihood? Pause there. Thank you very much.